Welcome to EduRev.
Hello friends, good afternoon. Welcome to EduRev. This is Binu Krishna and I have considerable expertise in teaching the subject of art and culture for UPSC Civil Services examination. Today in this lecture of art and culture, we are continuing with the topic of Indus Valley Civilization. If you could remember, in the last lecture, we dealt about the topic of town planning. So what did we deal in the topic of town planning? We saw how the towns are structured, how the buildings are actually built. We saw quite a few examples in terms of citadel, the lower town. We saw some of the prominent sites of the Great Bath, the Great Granary. We also saw how the streets are planned. We saw about how the drains are structured. We also saw about how they have a standardized measurement in terms of the bricks. So essentially, in one word, we can describe it as town planning. So in this particular lecture, we'll be seeing another very interesting part or aspect of the IVC, which is nothing but the social life. So that's what we're going to see today, the social life of Indus Valley civilization. So yes, we are going to see this as a part of the continuation of the previous lecture. So that is why you could see that the very first thing I have numbered it as 8. So please read it as a continuation of the previous lecture because that will give you additional points when you write your mains answer writing or when you have to put a holistic point of view in terms of Indus Valley civilization. So the first topic that we are going to discuss for the day is about agriculture as an aspect of social life. So when you're first talking about agriculture, you need to talk about what are the prominent crops that are grown or that were grown in IBC and what were the prominent evidences. So first point is very important, wheat and barley. Wheat and barley was their very staple food crops. Apart from wheat and barley, you also had some other prominent crops in the form of sesame, lentils, and cotton. Of course, please do not forget the role that was played by cotton. Cotton was the prominent crop that was used as part of winning, as a part of the cloth. So when you're talking about the fabric that was prominently used, try to remember it was cotton. And horticulture was also practiced, that is fruits and vegetables they were grown. Not just that, the discovery of grains at some of the Harappan sites, try to remember it, the discovery of the grains at some of the Harappan sites and the terracotta models of the plough that is found at two prominent places of Cholistan and Banavali. It points towards the prevalence of agriculture at that point of time. Not just that, you also find evidences of plowed fields at one of the prominent places, which is Kalibangan. So, plowed field is another important evidence. Not just that, irrigation models have also been found at the place of Dolavera, and especially you have to remember that the irrigation is thought to have been carried out by means of by the usage of wells or reservoirs which were found at this place of Dolavira. And not just that, there is evidence of domestication of animals. That also try to remember, there is clear-cut evidence of domestication of animals. What sort of animals? Try to take a look at it. Cattle, sheep, goat, water buffalo. These are some of the prominent things. And another thing is elephant. Elephant was also domesticated by the IVC, Indus Valley Civilization people. That is why when you take many of the cosmetics which was used by the women, ivory was a certain very important byproduct. They made some of the face paints using ivory. They had some uh, hair clips that was made out of ivory. Combs of the women were made out of ivory, suggesting that ivory was actually properly sourced from an animal. And raising livestock, it was actually thought to be a useful investment against crop failure. So that is why people, apart from agriculture, they also took to animal husbandry. They also took to domestication of animals, and terracotta figurines, statues, and seals of bulls. They suggest that oxen might have been used for agricultural purposes. And coming to food habits, they were both following vegetarian and non-vegetarian practices, and they tried to make it a very healthy diet. Not just that, this part of whether IBC people actually consume rice or not, there is not a very clear cut evidence as in if they actually consumed rice or not. However, still, this also you need to remember some evidences of rice has also been found at Lothal and Ropar. And then clothes. Coming to the clothes, as I've told you before, cotton was the most common fabric, although wool might have also been used. And they were very well aware about the practice of weaving and spinning. And weaving and spinning, you needed spindles for it. Now, this weaving and spinning practices are still existing uh, traditional in the traditional format of using spindles in still in some southern parts of the country. So when you find the spindles, you tend to understand that they made the fabric out of their own. Like you have the cotton crop, so you have to make the fabric out of it, for which you need to know the process of weaving and spinning. And from the fabric that is made, you have to make your own clothes, right? So for that, you need needles and buttons to make your own clothes. So stitching was known, as well as weaving and spinning was also known. So that also try to remember. And coming to the aspect of wearing the cloths, so take a look at this picture that you have here. These are the buttons that have been probably used by them. And coming to the concept of wearing the cloths, so this is the most famous bearded man statue, right? So you all know about this bearded man statue. So from this bearded man statue, they inferred, they thought that the figurines suggest, understand the word, the figurines, they suggest that two pieces of clothes were used by the men and the women. One piece resembled dhoti that is covering the lower body, and the other portion was worn over the left shoulder under the right arm. So even when you take a look at this particular picture that you have, you can understand that probably two pieces of clothes were worn. One was worn as a garment to cover your upper body, and the other one was covering your lower body. Thus, two pieces of garments might have been used by both men and women. And coming to cosmetics, they knew the face paint that is made out of ivory, and the bronze opal mirrors, ivory combs, ivory hairpins. These are all used by women of that particular time. And coming to the ornaments, ornaments were made of gold, silver, copper, bronze, and semi-precious stones. And these ornaments, they were worn by both men and women equally. Both men and women, they wore ornaments like necklaces, fillets, amulets, and finger rings. Now, this amulet, try to remember that it was used as a part of identification of one person belonging to one particular creed or community. In the later part of time, in the later part of the history, amulet was also, like, very importantly and interestingly, amulet is a source to ward off evil spirit. So for that purpose also amulets were used. So that suggests that people actually tend to believe this concept of ghost and everything. And beads that was made from cornelian, amethyst, quartz, and steatite, they were quite popular, and there were many factories that was discovered in Chanhutaro and Lothal. And coming to games and sports, of course, we are dealing with the social life of the people, which means we cannot neglect the entertainment aspect of the people. So, one form of entertainment for the people is, yes, hunting, gambling, playing dice. This was considered. Now, if you take hunting, hunting is believed to be or having to be taken place for a long period of time, because it was evident in a large number of seals. So not just for the food, they also hunted for the sake of or as a means of entertainment. And They were very fond of gambling, they were fond of playing dice, dancing, and singing. Because you find this very important dancing statue that was found in Mohenjo-daro. So, from that, you can actually imbibe, or there were many such dancing images. So, from that, you can actually understand that merrymaking was one such important event. It was an important entertainment event for the Indus Valley Civilization people. There were also some of the dice that was found. There were some of the terracotta figurines that was found, like small cards, small dolls. So from then we understood that even kids used to take to playing games on a very high priority. Also, there was a certain sort of gender play stereotyping. Like when you take some type of cards, probably it was found that they were mostly men oriented, and similarly there were certain gender play when it came to the dolls that was found and the activities that have been generally taken by girls and boys. So there was a gender play, a sort of gender play stereotyping. Again, it is a probability, so try to understand that. And then coming on to tools. Now, uh, the one point that is very, very important when we are talking about the tools is marked in yellow color here. Try to look at that. There is not much evidence of production of weapons by the Indus Valley people, which suggests that there might not have been a great confrontation in the Harappan civilization. What does that mean? It means that the Harappans or the people of the Indus Valley, they might not have involved on a very high scale in warfare. Warfare was not that big a deal in the Indus Valley civilization because then you would be actually producing a mass production of weapons, but that is not actually the case, which suggests that warfare is not a very big industry or very big activity in Indus Valley civilization, which when extrapolated, the discussion could also lead to the fact that Aryans and the Harappans might not have been, there might not have been a great confrontation of a very large scale. So such extrapolated discussions can go on and on. What actually happened with the invasion of the Aryans? How did their Indus Valley civilization actually decline? That is for an entirely different day for discussion. Let us not come into that. But try to remember the small fact that there was not much of a mass production of weapons. There was not a great deal of importance that was given to warfare. And tools such as axes, spearheads, daggers, bows, they were made of copper and bronze was actually much used on a very large scale. And these actually suggest that hunting might have been a prominent thing. And similarly, you also had some fish hooks, which shows that fishing must have been another important occupation. And similarly, knives, spindles, needles, these were also found, which further suggests the use of tools in various households. These are the household tool articles. Try to remember that as well. And then coming on to, yes, something that is very, very important is religion. Because though the Harappans, they were not that associated, they did not give as much importance to this aspect of religion, there are still some prominent information that we could observe from this seals that is found, from the statues that was found. Let us try to understand that some presence of religious beliefs which was comparable to present day Hinduism was found in Indus Valley civilization. How did they prove that? Because you have this symbol or the seal of Pashupati, this symbol or seal of Pashupati, who was considered to be the proto Shiva. And similarly, we also have the worship of Mother Goddess that was taking place. Now, from this Mother Goddess, we can extrapolate the discussion in two aspects. One thing is the worship of Mother Goddess indicates that there might have been a matriarchal society in picture. Indus Valley civilization might have been a matriarchal society. That is one interpretation. What is the second interpretation? That because of the worship of the Pashupati, because of the worship of the mother goddess, this might have extrapolated, might have got extended in the future also. That is why we have this worship of Bhaktism. That is why we have this worship of female goddesses later on in the religion of Hinduism. Also, there was this worship of fertility symbols, yoni worship, phallus worship, and so on, which also suggests that this might have got extended in the later part of Hinduism, which suggests that there was some presence of religious beliefs which was comparable to early Hinduism. Did you get my interpretation, friends? So this is how that we interpreted that things might have existed in such and such a manner in the previous time. However, historians believe that the religion does not seem to have a predominant influence on the society. If you could remember in the last lecture, we dealt about one UPSC prelims question which asked this very same point. That is, how religion impacted the society of IBC. So this point was asked in one of the prelims paper, which and that particular prelims question we discussed in the last module also. Please try to go back to the previous lecture to view about that. Continuing the concept of religion, they worshipped a father god who was considered to be a prototype of Lord Shiva or Proto Shiva or the initial format of Shiva, and he was called as Pashupati, and he was suggested to be sitting in a yogic posture. And they worshipped fertility symbols, and they worshipped trees and animals. They believed in ghosts and evil forces, and to ward them off, amulets were used as protection against these evil forces. And this prototype of sacred tank, which was found in Mohenjo-daro, what are they referring to here? They are referring to the Great Bath, the sacred tank that was found in Mohenjo-daro, that was also found in the later parts of Hindu temples in the southern parts of the country in South India. So that is why we can always say that there is a definite thread. There is a definite thread that continued from the ancient Indus Valley civilization. A thread of religion actually continued towards the modern era, which later on became the proper ways of developing Hinduism. Now coming on to the script. The script, of course, it has not been deciphered yet. But what is very important, it is a pictographic script. It is a pictographic script. It was mostly written from right to left. It was mostly written from right to left. Another important word is Bostro-Fedin method. In the late Harappan period, the script was essentially written in Bostro-Fedin method. That was primarily in the late Harappan time. Not just that, it was only a very minor script, or very small number of scripts was actually written in Bostro-Fedin method. Majorly what was found? Majorly the script was written from right to left. Another thing is, what is this Bostro-Fedin method? Take a look at the picture that we have here. That is, you start writing from the left to right initially. You start writing from like this, and then you move from right to left. So in alternate lines, you're writing from left to right, and then you're moving from right to left, and then you're coming back in the next line from left to right. So this alternate way of writing is what we refer to as the Bostro-Fedin method. So this was also adopted in the late Harappan period script. And then coming on to burial practices, three important burial practices you have to take a note of here. First thing is complete burial, as in they tend to bury the entire body. Second practice that was actually practiced was fractional burials. Now complete burials was again the major practice. Fractional burials was also taking place. What is fractional burial? It is nothing but the body is left to be exposed to the nature. Birds, beasts, they try to eat away the corpse, the carcass. And then what happens is The bones are gathered and then later on it is buried. So it is fractional burial because first of all the body is exposed to the forces of the nature and later on it is buried. So that is why we call it as a fractional burial. And then comes the point of cremation. So what is cremation? Yes, the body gets cremated totally. So yes, three types of burials we have seen, and burial chambers have been discovered in the form of pits. So in some burial pits, brick linings were also found. That is, in some burial practices, probably they were lined with big bricks. The pits was actually lined with bricks, which showed that there might have been certain social differences for burying a person or for burying the dead people. Some might get a better higher status of burial, whereas the others might not get that great degree of respect when he is dead. And some of the dead, they were buried, this point is very, very crucial, they were buried along with the items of jewelry, pottery, indicating the belief in afterlife. That also you need to remember. And the next thing is weights and measures. Of course, they have standard weights and measures in the form of cubical pieces of stones, which was called as sherds. They were called as sherds. And they show that in weighing, mostly they take to the practices of 16 and multiples of 16. That was the general practice. Like 16 annas, that was a very common way of trade and commerce. You have certain coins, and 16 was actually the multiples for weighing measurements. 16 was also the major practice for giving out coins for trade and commerce. So that also you have to remember. And finally, Dockyard at Lothal. So here, from the existence of a channel-based docking system that was found at Lothal in the state of Gujarat, now we understand that this place might have been a prominent trading town. And here the dockyard was actually connected to a river channel through which boats could reach the sea following the tidal system. So tides were profitably extracted, they were profitably used for the rivers to plunge from the river, for the boats to plunge from the rivers into the sea, for which the tidal system was used. That is, when you have a high tide, it gets unlocked, and when you have a low tide, the channel could be locked. So this is one very important trading town. And finally, we have one question for practice. So consider the question that we have here. Which of the following statement it reflects the lifestyle of Harappan civilization? So there are four statements. Hunting and bullfighting were pastime activities. Yes, that is true. Harappans were the first to make pottery with the help of pottery wheel. Now, this is a googly question. You might go wrong in this particular statement because the other statements can be easily guessed also. But try to understand that pottery was not invented by the Harappans. Pottery was existing previously during the Neolithic era. That there itself you have this pots being made first of all by hands. Later on, they took to pottery wheel, which suggests that pottery was not first of all invented by the Harappans. So Neolithic people they started inventing or making pots. Similarly, there was also evidences of pottery in Mesopotamia. So around 7000 BC, you had this evidence of pot making. So that was not first of all invented by Harappans. Evidence of gender play stereotyping toys. Yes, of course, evidence existed. Wheat and maize to be their staple food. It was wheat and barley. So the fourth statement is wrong. The second statement is also wrong, which suggests that the answer is 1 and 3. Now, if you know that the second statement is actually wrong, then you can very well come by the trick of elimination that A is the correct statement. So this is how you have to employ the trick of elimination also. So try to understand how you can eliminate certain answers. Such practice questions we will also be seeing in our forthcoming lectures. So with that, we are concluding the lecture for the day and try to go through all the lectures of art and culture comprehensively to understand this concept of Indus Valley civilization. Over 10,000 plus videos have been found in our EduDev Infinity platform. You can go through that. We have also got numerous MCQs for your practice sessions. Thank you so much and have a nice day.